Watch that first step.
We just call it.
No, I want to say that this is a work session, so we get open discussion.
Good evening, Commissioner President, President Bibram, George, Mrs. Dollar. A couple things I'd like to start off with, those 5 talking points I kind of want to go over briefly, just as an introduction. I took notes tonight because otherwise I'll get off on a tangent over here and there, and I'm just trying to keep myself organized. So, first thing I want to talk about is one of the things that we found that the community really wants, as evident by the last superintendent search, and by all the stakeholder groups that participated in that last superintendent search. They want Kent County Public Schools to be a high-performing district. For years, it's been a struggle. I find lately those struggles are slowly coming to an end, and we're seeing a lot of gains and improvements in our school district. Dr. Couch was hired by the Board of Ed to bring focus to our school district. We thought that, along with all the stakeholder groups, because the recommendation by the stakeholder groups was that they highly recommended Dr. Couch. So among the stakeholder groups as well as the board, we thought that Dr. Couch would be able to bring her expertise as a former superintendent, assess the challenges that our district faces, and make positive changes to improve the school system. And again, from my perspective, we are certainly moving in that direction. It's always a work in progress, and there are certainly more good things to come as we're starting to see. One of the big issues we continue to experience, and as you look down the road to trend data over the next 10 years, we are experiencing a decline in student enrollment, which can be tied, I believe, to multiple different factors. The downside to the loss of students is the loss of course, revenue sources. As we lose students, we lose revenue. Kent County Public Schools does not have the ability to raise taxes. We don't have an option to raise taxes or generate any substantial funding source. In the last 3 years, we have redirected more funding into the classrooms and support the operations of 7 school sites. This has not come without some sacrifice, and we've also eliminated over 50 positions, which is huge. And I know when I came on the board, one of the things the community kept saying is we're top heavy at the top. And this board and previous boards tried to eliminate positions as we could, but I think in some cases it's come at a huge cost, because I think some of those positions are still very much needed. But this is what the community is asking. We're now at a point where we can no longer sustain a loss in funding without affecting programs and resources for our kids. The ability to recruit and retain highly qualified teachers is one of the biggest things for closing the achievement gap. And I go back to saying that again, highly qualified teachers. Rural communities, I think, tend to struggle with that for various reasons. I've gone on numerous recruiting trips for another school district, and these kids who are getting ready to go into the education field, they swarm to the bigger schools where the money is, and so they're not dumb. They're going where the money is, and plus they also do a lot of their student teaching over on the other side of the bridge, and therefore they're very comfortable with the school district that their student teaching in. So it's very hard to recruit, not impossible, but it's very hard to recruit. We tend to get a lot of good teachers from Pennsylvania because the job market up there is very tight and hard. So they come down here looking for jobs, and we're lucky in a lot of cases to get good quality teachers. However, and I'm going to say this with all schools, I think on the Eastern Shore, some of the teachers we tend to get, they are here for 3 or 4 years, and when that job opens up in Pennsylvania, they're gone. So, you know, so I think we need to look at, you know, we got to look at something to attract our teachers. The last point I want to make is Kent County Public Schools cannot continue to improve and program their resources for our students when we cannot recruit the highly qualified staff. As a community, we must invest in our local schools. Do we value our public schools, and are we willing to make an investment needed to ensure that our students are ready for college, are they ready for careers upon graduation? That's a big thing. Additional funding reduction has the potential for negativity affecting the progress we've made in the past 3 years. It is my hope that this meeting that we're having tonight will result in a renewed commitment to work together to address the needs of our future and the children of Kent County. So that's my little tidbit tonight. I'll let Dr. Couch go over some other information with you that she will share.
Thank you. As I spoke with Mrs. Heller, I thought it might be a great opportunity to talk about some of the things that we've done, some of the investments that we've made over the last 3 years, and then celebrate some of the recent news that we have and showing that we have positive outcomes to demonstrate that educational investment has been worthwhile. The first thing I'd like to go through is just briefly, and I know it looks like a lot, but I just thought, you know, it'd be nice to have the placeholder so we can know where we're at. So the first thing is educational investments. What have we done in the last 3 years in terms of trying to improve education in Kent County Public Schools? The first thing is obviously we replaced all of our outdated textbooks. And I know we really beat that down, and we've sang that song for quite a bit, but it was really a very sad state of affairs here in regard to the outdated textbooks. When you have 15-year-old textbooks and you've got them in the classroom, it's pretty difficult to make substantial gains if you have outdated textbooks for our teachers and our students. We updated instructional materials, and that really encompassed a lot with regard to the technology. We had a lot of technology already in the classroom with some of the Promethean boards, but we really did not have the laptops and the one-to-one devices that we have. So as we get greater opportunities for technology, then we see opportunities for instructional materials. And some of the things I'm going to share with you a little bit later in the presentation will just, I think, really emphasize and underscore the importance of utilizing technology with today's students in education. Universal pre-K, we've talked about that a lot. That was a commitment from this Board of Education. That was something that we did the first year that I arrived, and you know, it didn't take a lot of convincing for me because that was really a push. And when I lived in New Mexico, that's funded by the legislature. It was something. It was a commitment that we made, and it paid off in huge returns. So paying for and providing pre-K, universal pre-K was singly one of the most important things that we did in this county, because of yeah, and that's one thing I did want to kind of go over a little bit, because I know there's some conversation about who's really paying for pre-K. Kindergarten, we are funded for kindergarten through 12th grade. So in order for us to make this a priority, then we actually reduce the per student allocation for the remaining students. in order to make that a priority. So that was a commitment from this Board of Ed. Digital learning environment is standard in the Kent County Public Schools. It's really impressive when we're starting to have a lot of districts from out of state coming to visit us now, and it's due a lot to our partnership with Discovery Education. You know, they're promoting what we're doing in Kent County, and we have a lot to celebrate with regard to technology and how we're delivering education, and also the engagement that our students have. You know, we take people to go and visit our classrooms, and you will see our first graders working in groups with their devices, and they have personalized learning plans in front of them. And that is really the beauty. When you're a small district like we are, and we have limited resources, it's incredibly important to be able to provide that personal learning, and we can do that with technology. So it's really thinking smart and using it in a way that is really engaging to our kids. And I'll tell you, they love technology. And the ability to see these kids and how they function at such an early grade, and it's just astounding. And I've invited you before, and I will invite you again to come out to our schools and see what is really happening, because I really think it would really amaze you. Professional development. We invested a lot of our resources into professional development. One of the things that I brought to this county, and something I completely believe in, and if you look at other high-performing school districts and schools, they use professional learning communities. Professional learning communities is more than reading a book and talking about it. It's about changing the culture. It's about teachers using data to make changes that need to happen in order to better address the needs of our kids. And it really changes the way you view students in schools. And I relate to this particularly when I was a principal. I was at a school that was low performing. It was the worst school in the district. And we were right next to the project, so we had a lot of challenges. But I will tell you, working together where we changed the culture of our school, it made a huge difference, because the kids became our kids. It wasn't just about my kids in my classroom, it was our kids in the school. And if you walk into any of our buildings, you will see that there is a greater change of attitude with regard to how we work with our kids. And I really believe this wholeheartedly, and I think the staff would attest to this. This is what has really helped position us and skyrocket us in some cases with the advances that we made and the outcomes that we've been able to achieve. Digital Learning Core. Again, you can have all the devices you want in your classroom, but if you're not training your teachers on how to use those, volunteer. They're year 3 in this cohort, and so we're getting ready to start a new one, and we've already got teachers signed ready to be on the list. And teachers are asking for more information about how they can better utilize technology in their classroom. We have Math Academy, English Language Arts Academy, again, because we have limited resources. We're not like the larger counties that have a whole curriculum office. You know, you might have 10 people that can write curriculum. If we don't utilize the resources in a smart way, then we can't get those kinds of things done. So we are paying our teachers to come and help us look at the curriculum and make sure that we're delivering the standards at a time when the students need to have the standards delivered. Advanced placement. We spent some money on advanced placement because you know, the outcomes were not something to really celebrate. We should be doing better. So we have procured some other resources, and we're training our teachers on how to get better results. And we've spent money for those materials. Interventions, again, you know, we are only as good as the least of us. So if we're not paying attention to the students that are really struggling and that really need that help, and provide those on-time, day-to-day interventions, which we really were not doing, then we're not going to be able to meet the needs of our lowest performing students and the kids that need the most help. So we've got those in place. At every school, you will see a time when they're delivering interventions, and that is standard in our schools now. Naviance program is a wonderful program that this is year 2, and it's really skyrocketed. The high school principal sent me some data last night, and it was really amazing. She said that students are signing up for college visits almost double where we were this time last year. It's for grades 6 through 12. It's a college and readiness preparation. Students, and why they love this is because it's technology. They can access this information on their phone. They can take interest surveys on their phone. They can, if their interest shoves them towards engineering, they can put in their phone, I'm interested in colleges in Maryland that can offer engineering, or within a 200-mile radius, and it'll just bring up all the colleges that would be in that area, within those parameters and that search criteria. And then it also will help us track data, because we have a huge number. I mean, I don't have the number in front of me. The high school principal, Mrs. Williams, shared that, but I think it was over 50% of our high school seniors or our high schoolers are first-generation college goers. And so we have to do a better job of tracking what they're doing. And with this program, it's a comprehensive management tool. We can collect data. We know where they're applying. If we see that, say the student is interested in engineering and we think they need to be looking at the University of Maryland and they're not, we can enter it into their profile, and we can tell them, you need to look at this. The parents also have a profile as well, and they can also add things and tell their children to access that. One of the other things we're not doing well, or we haven't been doing well, is having our students apply for scholarships. This program helps us because it puts all of that, it's a one-stop. Kids know exactly what scholarships they should be applying for, and we don't have to wait for them to go to the guidance office to get that information. So that's a great investment. Communication. We invested in a lot of communication tools to communicate with our families. We've got Bright Arrow mass notification system, and your school info. I didn't bring my phone up here, but it's an app, and it tells you every morning what's happening at your school. So I've been stopped at football games, and some of the parents say, we love this new app, because it's consistently telling them, like if there's going to be a college at the high school, a college visit, they'll say, University of Maryland's here today visiting, and so they know what's happening. It also is a great way, if we have an emergency, we can push it out very quickly, and it goes to all 3 places. A call, an app, and then on the website. So that was an investment that we made as well. More resources in underperforming schools. That is something that, from my using my professional judgment, we were underserving some of our schools. And so we have done a much better job of allocating more resources. Fair is not always equal. And so you have to look at your data, and you have to look at what it is you're trying to do. And again, we're only as great as the least of us. So we have to look at the fact that poverty brings with it a lot of social and emotional issues. And so we have added additional special education programs at Wharton, and also at Garnett, and also at the middle school. Those are the places that we need them. We actually added another special education teacher due to the caseloads, and we felt like it was very much needed. We have social emotional classrooms at Garnett that help us, or a classroom. We really need to add another one, just because our kids are coming in with these great needs. We've added a social worker at Garnett, which has been incredibly beneficial. And we're trying to build up a caseload for all seasons with a counselor at Wharton. If it doesn't work out, then we're going to have to, we're going to have to bite the bullet and allocate monies to, for that as well. And of course, the counselor with the truancy program that helps us keep our kids in school at the high school. We also expanded Algebra 1 classes at Kent County Middle School. Again, we were offering Algebra 1 for our STEM kids, but not all of our students are, they need to have access to higher math, but maybe they're not really into the whole STEM, or maybe they're just late bloomers. If we don't give them the opportunity to take Algebra 1 at the middle school, they're out of luck for taking higher math, higher level math at the high school. So this year we started a pilot, a non-STEM Algebra 1 program, identified 28 students that tried to bring in more minorities and tried to bring in some of the kids that were weren't really sure if they could succeed. And so far, that's been a very good pilot, and we may be expanding that as well. That takes more commitment and resources from our teachers. We added the Teacher Academy to our career and technology education program. So, that's in there as well. We added the measurement of academic progress assessments this year. These are diagnostic assessments, and the reason why I really felt like it was important to bring this up is PARCC is a mastery. It's a mastery level. It tests, or at least lets the parents know how well the child mastered the test. And that's fine and well, and we can use the data to the best of our ability, but the measurement of academic progress actually provides us with diagnostics. We gave it at the beginning of the year, and it tells us what the students need in order to be successful in that grade level. So it really helps us target those interventions to help our students, and so our teachers are really loving this. And the thing about this is, you can't layer these things on the first year. You have to wait till people are ready to accept those, and we're at a place now where teachers are asking for the data so that they can help students be successful. And then, of course, the recruitment and retention of highly qualified teachers. Our teachers have been frozen, if you will, or at least held at their step. They had not seen a step increase in 3 years prior to my arrival, and so obviously we couldn't support giving them all 3 steps right away, but my point was we had to at least find a way to provide a step so we wouldn't get further and further behind. So that was at a commitment at a time when we were reducing our budgets as well. So that was something. So celebrations. We've had an expanded outreach for underserved populations. I explained or relayed some of the things that we've done. But the other thing that we did this year is we moved our most experienced principals to our underperforming schools. We felt that was very much needed. We kind of went back and forth, and there was lots of turnover and those kinds of things in those schools. But it was a courageous move on our part, to make those changes. And we also moved teachers around. We've been moving them around not moving them around, but just reevaluating where our strengths are and where we needed greater strengths, trying to marriage non-tenured with tenured teachers so we have strong teams. Again, as Mr. Reed spoke about, you can never underestimate the importance of a highly qualified teacher and those to achieve results. Commitment to the success of all students is really through the PLC process that I talked about, the professional learning communities, the assessments, all of those things have really helped us achieve positive outcomes. And I will say that the schools that were using it well were the schools that showed significant results, double-digit results in the PARCC scores this year. So I think it was a great message for us as a county, but great message to the administrative team that we really had to strengthen and really focus on that as well. And I'm very excited about our 2 new principals at the elementary level. They're very committed to that, and they've been part of this district and part of what we've been trying to do. Kindergarten readiness, #1 ranking, 2 consecutive years. That's a celebration. The technology that we have in grades K through 12, that's a celebration. Our improved academic outcomes. In our park results, we showed improvements in 13 out of 16 targets, double-digit improvement in 9 out of 16 targets, which maybe people don't really understand how hard that really is to do, and it is. Even at the state level, when you saw improvements in their park, it's single digit. So we knew we have a lot of room to grow still, and we still have areas that we have to look at. But we were very honest when we presented this information for the board that we had 3 high achieving schools, and so we really I think that we're going to see some, and it brought down the district averages overall for elementary, but we really feel like we're going to do incredibly well. And that's our sense. We've got a very high energy level, and everybody seems to be excited about that. Secondary schools, we exceeded targets, we exceeded statewide averages in 6 out of 10 targets. Our elementary schools continue to demonstrate strength in math, which is, that was our weakness when I first came. So that's something we're celebrating. And the data demonstrates, again, the success of PLC. Our high school really, I don't really want to sound like we're bragging a bit, but we are. And I like to, I kid a bit and say we knocked it out of the park. Park scores, so I know. Anyways, our 10th grade English language arts, they did incredibly well with their averages and with what we did with the average score, and we were number 1 on the Eastern Shore, number 2 in the state. That's looking at performance levels 3, 4, and 5. Last year, performance level 3, 4, and 5 was passing. They haven't absolutely said that for a fact, but we're assuming that that's the case because for graduation, they're not going to take level 4 or performance level 4 until 2020. So we're assuming that, and even if we didn't, and we just said, let's take levels 4 and 5, we would be number 5 in the state. So it was significant, and it's not just, I know there's some question about how did our minorities do. We did incredibly well with our minorities as well. With 10th grade ELA, our African American population was number 2 on the shore and number 6 in Maryland. So, I mean, we are reaching all of our population. Algebra 1, number 3 on the Eastern Shore. Algebra 2, although we have to qualify that because not every county gave Algebra 2. It was optional. There are 18 counties that did. But we scored number 1 on the Eastern Shore. We have an improved graduation rate. The statewide average is, I wanted to make sure I didn't overstate that, is statewide average was 88%. Excuse me, 87% is the statewide average. And we are at 91%. Interestingly enough, our minorities are the highest graduation rate. 93% for African American and 92% for our Hispanic population. Scholarship awards doubled. As a matter of fact, some of my colleagues on the Eastern Shore questioned whether we were submitting accurate data because it actually doubled from the year before. Our students garnered about 15 million worth of, or thereabout, close to 15 million in scholarships, and last year was an all-time high, 30 million. From our students, and it was it's not a huge graduating class. And the way we add that up is anytime anybody gets offered a scholarship, it's added. So everybody.
The scholarships are there.
Yeah, exactly.
The system allows that to happen.
Yeah. So I'll just end with quality. What makes a quality school district? The ability to recruit highly qualified teachers. We have to have competitive salaries. One of the things in the story I like to tell with our substitutes, we still have work to do with our substitute teachers. We've lost 2 of our substitute teachers. One to go to work at Dunkin' Donuts because she makes more per hour working at Dunkin' Donuts, and she gets benefits. And so, we have a recurring revenue source issue overall. We start improving salary schedules, we have to be able to sustain them. And so we know we have work to do with substitute teachers. We lost another one to McDonald's. And that to me is just unbelievable that we would lose subs to that. So anyways, but we know that the minimum wage is going up, so we have several of our salary schedules that we're going to have to work on. So we have to have competitive salaries. Personalized student learning, I think if you look at high-performing schools throughout the country, that's where they're making the difference, is when you can personalize learning, that's when it just skyrockets for all of your kids in the school. Instructional materials, you have to have the ability to provide those and then provide resources for underperforming schools as you note them within your data. I mean, you don't just add resources because you think you need them, you add resources because you know you need them. What else do you need for equality is professional development opportunities. If we could not have the resources to train our teachers and then provide the ability to utilize materials or whatever it is we're introducing, again, it's just money, good money out for bad. The ability to have fine arts for our kids. We are a small county and it's a struggle every year to keep those things in place. But to me, I would almost advocate that we need to expand what we offer for fine arts because we're a fine arts community. I mean, that's important to us. You know, we try to utilize all of the resources that we have within the county, and thanks to Tom McHugh, we've been able to, and Gina Giacomois, we've been able to implement Arts in Motion and utilize the talent within the community. Career technology and engineering. We have 7 pathways: ag science, engineering, auto, broadcasting, construction, nursing, teacher academy. That comes at a huge cost. And we have one of the richest CTE programs in the state for being as small as we are. Again, that's a commitment. Class size has to be important, and of course, positive learning environments. So, you know, maintaining our facilities and making sure that we don't have roofs that are collapsing and, you know, trash cans holding the rain that's coming in from the roof. I mean, that all is important. So that concludes my presentation, and I don't know if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but the next slide I thought we would talk about is enrollment, unless you have something else you'd like to ask.
I do would like to make an exception as far as loss of funding. Funding has never been, unless the county supported.
Excuse me, what? Say that again.
Loss of funding has not been as implied.
Well, we have seen a loss of funding through, yeah. Well, but I'm saying we've seen it because of our enrollment. As our enrollment declines, so does our funding. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Enrollment. So I think these are the numbers that you were interested in. These are September 30 numbers, and you'll see that we are down 14 students. So if you use the average $14,000 per student, which is, you know, that's typically, it pretty much comes out to be true. You know, Mr. Kirby always questions me. But it always, and that's a combination of not just state, but local. So where the division is, we won't know till usually right around December, January, we'll get the breakout of what it looks like. But that would mean going into FY18, we will expect a shortfall of $196,000. Projected enrollment, I thought it was important. These are just based on current numbers. And again, when I spoke with Mrs. Heller, we talked about looking at projected enrollment. So all we did was roll the numbers that we currently have, and that's kind of how we assumed that we were going to lose 25 students this year. Rolling pre-K up to kindergarten, kindergarten up to first up to second. We anticipated that we were going to be down 25 students this year. We were only down 14. So, you know, what happened is we lost some students, but we gained some students. And we gained some students from private schools and then others that did move into the county. So that is not an accurate science, but, you know, it does give you kind of that's the best I got, exactly. So if I use the current numbers, this is what the breakdown would be in subsequent years. FY18, we project a loss of 26 students, and these are numbers that we provide to MSDE as well. FY19, loss of 39 students, and FY20, a loss of 48 students. We've got a large 10th grade class right now, so that's how come that is so much greater. When they graduate, that's one of the largest classes at the high school. And then what I didn't put up here is in 2014, we lost 9. 2015, we lost 34. 2016, we lost 63. This year, current year, we lost 14. So that was loss of 150 students. And if you look at the 3 years coming up, that could be a potential loss of 113 students. So,
Couple that with a declining population also,
yeah,
not as dramatic.
right, right. But I would say that, you know, at one point, you know, you can make a lot of connections and connect the dots with loss of enrollment. You know, families come and go because of jobs, and, you know, there's a lot to do with economic development and what's happening within the county. There's some that advocate, well, you know, they move to the county, or they come to Washington College, or they come and work at Dixon or wherever, and they can live anywhere. You know, where do they choose to live? So we know that the school district is the economic driver, or at least one arm of the economic driver of the community. So we feel that it's in everyone's best interest for us to perform and to show good academic outcomes, because that may be the deciding factor. But the other thing too is we have teachers. I mean, we are a large employer as well. And if we hire new teachers, I mean, one of the things that happens is we hire teachers, we don't pay as well as neighboring counties. So they'll get their foot in the door, and, you know, we train them, and it's very indicative of the turnover that we have. And then they go somewhere else to earn perhaps $10,000 more at a neighboring county. So we still have work to do, and we still are going to have to commit some funding, you know, so that we can be competitive. Again, we don't have to be the best, but we certainly are not going to have the ability to bring in good people if we're not competitive.
Then one of our also concern is your professional staff, where they live. Of course, we like to live in the county, but it's hard for them to find affordable housing.
Yes.
And also,
That is absolutely true. We hear that all the time from the new teachers that we hire. So what happens, they'll find a place in Queen Anne's County, or they'll find a place in Middletown. And, you know, they'll live elsewhere, because really, yeah. Yeah, and then, eventually, if there's a job opening where they're living, you know, why wouldn't they want to look at that? So we have a lot of challenges within this community, and I think that I think at some point, to some degree, the school district was the whipping boy in terms of it was all our fault, you know, that people weren't coming in because we were low performing. I mean, in some cases, it's because we were deemed a low performing school district. You know, I guess to some degree that could be true, but I think that as we start demonstrating the positive outcomes, I think that you can't really say that.
Well, you know, in 2025, we're talking, it's documented, will be about 40% of the population in King County will be 60 plus. They're not having babies. You know, you're sitting here giving numbers of 113 students in the next 3 years, possibility of being diminished in some of our smallest schools' population. You know, we're 20% of the high school's population as it stands right now. It's huge numbers. And we're doing everything we can with economic development. We're spending the funds where necessary, but you're not going to turn that around in the next 5 years. It's going to take it's happened in 25 years that we've gone downhill to this extent. It's going to take years to get that back. You're not going to turn that around immediately. So, good numbers.
I mean, you're only part, one cog in the wheel. Very important. But there's a whole lot more, as you know, population demographic. And which is what we have to do. But I would say this personally, government is not always the solution. It's only part of it. And we do like behind the rest of Maryland as far as economic growth is concerned. He sure does, I mean, I like the rest of it. There's a lot of up potential here.
Right. Well, and, you know, I don't know, there's probably pieces to the economic development that maybe you know that we don't know. So, I mean, that's where that information might
You're
be.
doing your job.
Okay.
And I might add that the advancements that we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, I think you all do a great job. And some of the things that you talked about celebrating, I mean, we witnessed that, and we see that as well. I mean, I think we're making great strides as far as the education system. So I applaud you and the board for all your efforts. I think you've done a great job.
Well, the credit goes to our teachers and our principals and the administrative staff. You know, they have really put in their heart and soul into making a difference. So that to me is where the
Now,
accolades.
in complimenting your side, 2 or 3 things I'd like to say, mention from our side of it as far as, but we don't really have anything to do with the school system other than funding. I mean, we can support it, we do, and we applaud you, but our real goal is the funding aspect. And I can say that we're proud to say that per pupil expense of per pupil cost out of 24 jurisdictions throughout the state, we're number 4. There's only 3 other counties ahead of us as far as per pupil cost associated with the school system. In the last 3 years, maintenance of effort is the benchmark as to what we have to fund. In the last 3 years, we have funded $1 million above maintenance of effort in the last 3 years. So there is some positive things that's taking place on this side as well. Now, we're still not solving the problem of the declining enrollment and how far do we continue to go. So, I mean, are we opening, is there still a consolidation that's being explored? I mean, when we first went into funding this last year, we figured we'd bought a couple more years to take a look at what was going to happen when fiber optics come through. 301 could make some advancements, and we figured we had bought a couple years. We didn't think that was the entire solution. So,
Well, I was never under the impression we bought a couple of years. I mean, I think we solved it for 1 year, and with the idea that we were going to have to come.
But you're still talking 10 years, 15 years out.
If we're going to do something, you got to start.
And yeah, and I would just end by saying the other challenge that we have is that the capacity that we have at each of our elementary schools, that's a challenge in itself. Because when we looked at consolidation and we looked at, 3, we could barely house pre-K through 5. So, I know there's been a lot of discussion about, well, should we have a, pre-K 7 school? We'd have to either buy portables and bring them in or build new additions because there is not enough capacity to do that. I'm just saying that's where we're challenged. We don't have, even when we looked at the 5th grade, because that's where we thought, okay, well, maybe we move the 5th grade to the middle school and the 8th grade to the high school, which was doable. but the overwhelming response from the community was, no, we want our 5th graders at the elementary, and we really want to keep our 8th graders at the middle school.
But the community also wants to keep their local schools.
That's true too.
It gives you a fresh growth. We're not saying this is easy, it's not.
It's not.
If you are single most pile of money we have in our budget. Not the majority, but there's one group in the school system that, or if there's only that percentage will change.
Yeah.
All the time. So we think,
Well,
my advice would be plan accordingly and do the best you can.
okay, just.
And understand that there are a lot of political arrows going out there too.
I guess what we need to know as a school district is, what commitment do we have for FY18? So, we're kind of skirting around it, so or maybe we're not, maybe you're saying.
No, I can't.
Okay, I don't know.
can't give you an answer today.
Okay, I didn't expect that because we've already been down that road once before. So I was not expecting that, but what I'm saying is that's what we need as a Board of Ed to move forward.
And understand that our expected revenue stream is going to be expected to flat.
Right.
So whatever we have this year, we're expecting.
And again, that's why I shared the consolidation timeline, because if it turns out that something has to change, we've gotta know something, so.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Robbie Bear. So I was born and raised in Chestertown. I attended Kent County Public Schools all the way through. I got my undergraduate degree at Williams College, which is consistently ranked by U.S. News and World Report as the #1 liberal arts college in the nation. I got my graduate degree and worked for 10 years in communications and design, and then returned to Chestertown to start a business with my husband and to have a family. 2 of my kids are currently at Garnett, with 1.5 more due to enroll in the next few years. So I'm only bringing up my credentials to you all here today because when I tried to get your take on this issue of school funding, you, Mr. Fithian, suggested that I was, quote, from another planet, and you, Mr. Pickram, simply refused to meet with me. Thank you, Mr. Short, for bucking the trend and actually sitting down to speak with one of your constituents. I want to assure that everyone in this room that not only am I from this planet, but I am from this county and a proud and successful product of our public schools. So I first became involved in this effort when consolidation was presented as the only solution to the district's budget challenges. I, like many people, first blamed the Board of Ed and Dr. Couch. But I got together with other concerned parents, and we started doing our research to try to understand the issue, looking into the school budget, talking with board members, meeting with Dr. Couch, and analyzing historical spending of the board. It soon became evident that our board is completely reliant on you for their budget, and that for at least the past 6 years has been forced to make decisions based on dollars instead of what is actually best for our students and families. This is what I and my small group of concerned parents have concluded. For years, the county has been shirking its responsibility to provide adequate funding for our kids' education. For years, you have been able to avoid making hard decisions because you've been riding on the backs of other people in the county who work tirelessly to fill the shortfall. For the last 5 years, you haven't provided sufficient funding to pay our teachers and staff to step, not to mention the cost of living increases that other counties provide, which amounts to 5 years of our teachers being underpaid and approximately $3 million in savings to you. As a result, many of our teachers are forced to work second jobs, and all of them spend their own money to pay for classroom supplies because they care that much. For at least 3 years, Kent Forward and our community business members have been donating funds to cover expenses that frankly the county should be responsible for. Last year alone, Dixon provided $100,000 for books and supplies to show their commitment to our kids. But really, should they have to? I personally don't believe that this should be their job. The county is also responsible for all of our school buildings, and yet in 15 years, you have consistently avoided funding important maintenance projects, including roof and HVAC repairs, that now have become so dire that they cost upwards of $3 million apiece. The neglect is bordering on catastrophic. These are the sorts of costs that would normally be covered in the fund balance, had you not gutted it last spring. You have asked Dr. Couch to spend down her fund balance before you'll give the schools any more money. Having money in the fund balance is not a case of foolishly sitting on piles of money, this misconception that you continue to promote to the community. Anyone familiar with good fiscal policy knows that healthy institutions set aside money to pay for unforeseen contingencies rather than waiting for crisis and then begging for emergency funding. And yet you are able, in slide 5 of your current proposed county budget, to boast about your strong fiscal position with your own fund balance of 7.3%. You point to your lack of new debt and how you're not going to raise taxes. And you were so proud to report that at the end of last year you were $3.5 million in the black. These are on surface positive accomplishments, but they obscure the fact that for years the county has been forcing others to fill the gaps in education so that you can look good on your own balance sheet. At best, it's savvy political work, because why would you pay for something yourself when you can coerce others into paying it for you? And at worst, it is willful ignorance and an abysmal lack of leadership. To increase awareness of these pervasive problems, our group has launched the Support Our Schools initiative. To date, we've collected more than 250 signatures on our petition asking you to increase the county education budget with the goal of making our schools truly excellent and to restore the decision-making power to our elected school board and professional educators. Tonight, we are asking you to step up and be leaders on this issue and to stop passing the buck. Here's our petition. And I'm glad I didn't mention that ballot measure thing that you were trying to do.
Krista Lamoureux?
Hi, I'm Krista. My son was at Wharton last year in first grade, and he's there again now. And I want to sort of paint a picture for you of what it was like to be at Wharton last year. So at the end of the school year, it was the final PTA meeting, and the outgoing leadership was explaining how challenging and demoralizing the previous year had been, and how they personally could not continue to be part of the PTA anymore. So the call goes out for volunteers to take over leadership of the PTA, and no one raises their hand. No one. The PTA leaders explain that if they don't have a minimum of 2 people to take over the PTA will cease to exist at Wharton Elementary School. And do you know how many people raise their hands then? 0. I work, I go to grad school full-time, and I'm a single mom. I'm one of the 2 people who finally volunteered to run the PTA at Wharton. And it is overwhelming. And I look around and see what is happening to our schools and our teachers and our administrators, and it's overwhelming and it's demoralizing. Everyone is looking over their shoulder, wondering, will I be here next year? Will she? Will I get to keep the raise I got? Will I get to keep the raise I got last year? This is one of the craziest things I've heard. You have teachers who get a raise one year that may not exist the following year, which means we can't even provide a consistent, equitable salary to our teachers? That's insane. So we have teachers leaving for better paying counties because they have to work 2 jobs to make life work in Kent County. We have families leaving Kent County because the schools are inadequate for them. Something is broken here. So let me get back to my wheelhouse. I'm vice president of the PTA, and before tonight, I didn't know if my son's school would be around next year. Now I just don't know if it'll be around 3 years from now. And that's a bit demoralizing. And the parents who do volunteer are really engaged and also demoralized. And the teachers and administrators work really hard and do an amazing job with our children. And I know they are worried and concerned and wish things were a whole lot different. So from where I'm standing, this system is broken. And there's a leadership and accountability failure in this county. And I know each of you understands leadership and accountability. You or members of your family have each served your country in the military, as have I. I have 20 years of service in the Navy. 13 of those years I was active duty jet pilot flying on and off of aircraft carriers. One thing I'm confident we all saw in the military was good leadership and bad leadership. And we learned a lot from both types. So this county needs good leaders. But what I hear in this county are the leaders placing the blame elsewhere. And I'm wondering when the leaders are going to start inspiring our county. When are the leaders going to own these problems and demonstrate their good leadership and be accountable and fix what's broken? Be a part of the solution. What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want your tenure to be remembered? Show us your inspiring leadership and help inspire creative solutions in this county instead of talking about how people are just getting old. That's not a solution. Please lead, be accountable, do what needs to be done, be a part of the solution for the long-term health of our schools in this county, please.
I think this Jody Barth.
Jody.
Hi. My name is Jody Bortz. I have 2 children who attend Garden Elementary. I went there myself. I graduated from Penn County High School. And after that, after graduating from college in PA, I was in management at Bradstreet, and then a spin-off company where I led a team responsible for managing financial and back office functions for Fortune 50 companies. I say that because it's been intimated that some of the mommies don't understand the intricacies of the finances involved. So I wanted to make clear that I have looked at every line item, and
Where would you get that? Where would you get that kind of comment?
I've
From where?
The correspondence has been going back and forth.
From who?
I'm also a 14th generation Eastern Shore resident. I moved back to be part of this community. I opened a shop on High Street. I volunteer in the community and in schools, and not just in my own kids' classes. Today was supposed to be my day off, and I was subbing in Rock Hall because they needed somebody. I was personally invested as you can get, and I find myself questioning my family's future here because of the lack of support for our kids' education, and by extension, me and my commitment to the community. I've heard the argument that you're tied to maintenance of effort, so I'd like to speak to that. I agree with you, the calculation is flawed. After all, teachers aren't paid per student, neither are bus drivers or facility repairs or any other number of things. I completely agree with you. That being tied to that kind of ties your hands in a way, but we pay you, we elected you to go beyond that and to come up with other solutions. Some other things that I'd like to draw attention to is that Cecil County's Teacher of the Year lives in Chestertown. A top-ranked state-level teacher lives here and doesn't work here because we're not paying competitively. 40%, according to the most recent census, 40% of the children that live in Kent County don't go to our schools here. So how do we fix that? How do we change that perception? And perception is reality, let's face it. If the perception is that the support isn't there, then what do we do to change that perception? We need to think about what it will take to bring them back. And if people see us investing, then maybe they'll do the same. I hope to look at this time right now as an opportunity to make that investment. Under the current school leadership, we've started to see some improvements. Our kindergarten kids are #1 in the state in readiness. Our high school just got great news about the ELA, now we're 2 results for the PARCC test. We can build on this, but we have such a long way to go. With a commitment to investing in our schools long-term, we could bring back students that left and encourage new families and employers to come here. We would also better support the workforce and employers that we have who stuck with us and keep our economy strong. This will be your legacy. My generation will remember yours to the next. If we're still here, I love this place. I love this community. I love being a part of it. And I think we can do great things, but we need to step up and make this commitment to our children. If we don't, more people like me, and maybe even me, will have to dig up our deep roots and leave. And I don't want to do that. I really, really want to make this work. So that's all I have to say.
Ed Silver?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Silver. I'm the Human Resources Supervisor at Kent County Public Schools. Tonight, Dr. Couch and Mr. Reed talked a little bit about the teacher shortage and the need to attract and recruit highly qualified people to be educators in our schools. One thing I've learned in my 27 years here in Kent County is that what makes the biggest difference is the quality of our teachers, the quality of our educators, and our school leaders. We're going through a time right now where nationwide we're starting to see a teacher shortage, to the point where Maryland is a net importer of teachers. Last year we hired 11,000 teachers in the state of Maryland. Our schools only produce 2,500. And therefore, we import teachers from Pennsylvania, other states around the country. The problem is Pennsylvania has seen in the last 2 years a reduction from 18,000 to 7,000, the number of new teachers produced in the state of Pennsylvania. So they're starting to see the same problem. We have to be careful and make sure that what we provide can attract the kind of educators we need in our schools. We hired 20 new teachers this year, but out of a teaching staff of 160, that's a large percentage of teachers. Those salaries don't tell the full story. As of this year, our teacher salary was 20th in the state. For our administrators, it was 23rd out of 24 systems. I think what we do there and what we can provide really shows how we value education. But it's more than that as well, because there's a savvy that they're coming in, our new teachers coming in, looking and comparing across systems. For instance, we don't always provide the highest salaries. We provide perhaps a lower course reimbursement for those who are going for their master's degree. Or do we pay it the same amount in terms of our health care reimbursement? If you go across the river, a first-year teacher who's single has 100% of their health care taken care of. That's not something we can provide. So we have some areas that we really need to work on as a community to support and to attract new teachers. And part of this is also going to be our creativity. We mentioned before the need for good, solid housing for our teachers and our professionals who are coming into the area. We don't like to say, you can look in Middletown, Delaware, or check Centerville or another location. We would like our teachers to stay here and live in the community. And overall, we work very hard to try to get people who are renting properties to share that information with us. But have we ever considered housing assistance, moving expenses? The concern with spouses who can't find a good paying job, that becomes an issue. And we had a teacher this year who's looking elsewhere for that exact reason. So we've seen some real improvements over the last 3 years. We believe we're heading in the right direction, and we can bring that momentum about. But we're only going to be as good as the people that we can attract, we can recruit, and we can retain. And as a system and as a county, we really need to work together on this. And I implore you to do so. Thank you.
I wanted to say Gina.
Dr. Lewis?
Thank you. I apologize for that.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. I'd just like to share a few thoughts from the perspective of someone who's been immersed in curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Not only from the role as a supervisor for the elementary schools, but also as a parent of 3 children that are part of the school system. Over the past 15 years, we have really worked hard in terms of embracing the changes and demands that have been placed upon our teachers. We've had a complete change in terms of the Common Core standards, the resources that we are using, and also all the professional development and training that goes hand in hand with that. I want to publicly acknowledge and applaud the hard work that our teachers do. And you've heard that over and over again. I think the fact that we recognize this challenge and we want to also ask for your continued support and your leadership in terms of helping us help them in the most effective way. In terms of professional development, that's an area in particular that's a passion of mine. It not only takes place during the school day, but our teachers willingly stay after school. This is something that matters to them. You've probably heard that since Dr. Couch has come on board, professional learning communities are huge. And what that is an opportunity for teachers to work together, to collaborate, to really provide the best instruction possible for our students. We need your help in continuing that momentum to not only do what's right for our students, but do what's right for our county so that quality education can be provided to all. So what I'm asking is that we consider going beyond maintenance of effort so that we can go beyond your expectations. Thank you.
Dana Newman.
Good evening, I'm a secondary supervisor, and I'm just going to speak to you from my heart. I moved here in 1974, and I've been involved in the school system since 1983 when my oldest started kindergarten. I was a classroom volunteer, I was PTA president, I was a long-term substitute, I was a student teacher, a principal, so I've seen a lot of aspects of Kent County, and I've networked both across the state and across the country. You won't find a more caring, dedicated, or talented staff anywhere. I am a Kent County taxpayer, as you can tell. I love living here. I'm proud to be here. I think we've made a lot of progress over the last few years. I don't think we can continue making that progress without your full support. There's nothing more important than the success of our children, because we won't keep the beautiful place that we live in without their long-term ability to contribute to the world. So thank you.
Jay McIntosh.
Good evening, friends. I just wanted to go on record as the Economic Development Coordinator for the town of Chestertown to make that statement that I know we all realize, but I feel I do need to make it tonight, that so much of what we're trying to accomplish, what we're working to accomplish in economic development in the town and the county is going to be built on a solid foundation of good, successful schools. It affects our ability to attract and retain young families, as we're hearing very passionately here tonight. It affects our ability to attract new businesses and help our current businesses grow and be successful. It affects those businesses' ability to attract and retain good employees. And it affects things like how well our hospital add services and continue to provide the quality of care that the community has been very vocal about demanding. And I applaud the families who have come here tonight, these young mothers in particular. It takes a lot of courage to get up and say these things with passion and devotion, and I appreciate that. And I'm hearing from them a call to how important this issue is in the same way we called the community's attention to the hospital. You know, it's an urgent need, and I think we all need to realize, whether we're young families or retirees, that the quality of our schools is affecting so many other areas. So thank you for this hearing tonight, and good luck with everything. Thanks, everybody.
That concludes those who have signed up for.
Oh, I'd still like to. Francois, they'll all
okay.
switch places.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. 2 hours ago, I was nervous, but now I'm just cold.
Save your money.
Turn it up. Well, we're almost done. We're in the hot seat, so that's why. You are, right there. My name is Francois Sullivan. I'm a parent and small business owner in Kent County. Most of my clients are also small business owners and nonprofits in Kent County. My husband and I moved here almost 15 years ago. We live in Wharton and have a child at Galena Elementary School. And I'm an active member of my PTA, and I'm happy to be able to contribute my time and money to our public schools. I'm invested in our community and in our county. Like many parents, I began spending more time digging into the status of our school funding when consolidation talks began in 2015. Since that time, I have done research, shared information, attended meetings, asked questions, and met with other people and organizations who are also interested and invested in the success of our schools. Most recently, we met with Dick Goodall, Linda Dawson, and other representatives of Dixon Valve and Kent Forward. During our meeting, we shared with them the alarming results of a recent teacher survey that we had conducted. Of the 31 teachers who responded, which would be the equivalent of an entire school in our district, almost half had second jobs to supplement their incomes. 100% of those surveyed said that they had already spent between $20 and $900 of their own money this school year for supplies in their classroom, and that they will continue to spend between $10 and $250 a month for supplies during the school year. Most teachers said they average an additional 10 to 15 hours a week outside of school on school-related work. I've personally helped run fundraising campaigns for teachers at Galena Elementary School for flexible furniture for their classrooms, and I'm proud to say that we were able to raise over $400 for each of those classrooms, which is $400 that those teachers won't have to spend out of their own pockets. We also met with Tom McHugh and discussed the arts advocacy work that he is doing for Kent County Public Schools with Gina Jakimowicz, I'm so sorry. He told us about the teacher mentor program. He told us about the teacher mentor program he is involved in and what talented teachers he has met. We discussed how discouraging it is that arts teachers at our middle school are having to cut the number of their arts classes down to accommodate the need for a teacher in other core classes because our school district doesn't have the money to hire more teachers. We have great, caring teachers who are doing great things. The recent PARC scores and kindergarten readiness are proof of that. Our students are doing great things, and they're paying attention. They know what it feels like to succeed. But they won't have that feeling very long if programs such as music, art, and languages continue to be cut because of budget shortfalls. They won't have that feeling very long if they see that their county doesn't make their education a priority. Why are parents and teachers having to pay for classroom supplies? Why are teachers being shuffled around to fill in gaps in our staffing? Why are our schools struggling and cutting and trying to make ends meet when our county commissioners are sitting on a fund balance of $3 million? That is tax money that the county has already collected, my taxes and my neighbor's taxes. Why try to pass a ballot question about raising taxes when you have the funds and are the decision makers? You found money for many greater good projects, including low-income seniors property tax credits, the water and sewer fee supplements, and more. Supporting our schools is the greatest of the greater good that you can do. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't let it. Why we did those good things for those other communities or other citizens of the county, at the same time, again, we gave over $1 million more to the schools. Real maintenance of effort. Okay.
We're a small
I didn't interrupt you, Francois.
Go ahead.
On top of that, you see the numbers where we've got buildings that are becoming, and it's not because we haven't spent money. Go back and look at the budgets of Kent County government. We have spent more money in the last 20 years in schools, whether it's the high school, whether it's Garnett. We've done our due diligence. The state will only fund projects when those times come due to be funded. So your HVAC systems that expire, they expire because the state says we're only going to fund it over every so many years. Roads, we have to do patchwork on those because the state says we're only going to fund this. So I would suggest some of this you take to the legislators of the state, as well as coming to us and giving us your opinion of what's going on here. I believe we have done our due diligence. I believe by putting the internet in every home in Kent County, the potential of having that within the next 2 years is going to help all these systems that Dr. Couch sits here and talk about all evening. Your kids, if you live out in Drake Manor, don't have that access. Or if you live in Kentmore Park, don't have that access. Yes, you live in Chestertown, you have that access. All of the county doesn't have. We put money away to handle those projects. Did we do our due diligence with the school system? I believe we did. I believe we stepped up to the plate. I believe we stepped up to the rest of the county. So to say there's lack of leadership here, I'm sorry to say, anybody in this room in the next 2 years can certainly step up to the plate and run for this leadership position. And you'll actually see the numbers that we have here that we have to work on, where 42% of the budget goes to the school system. You know, I'm not coming out here to chastise you. I'm just letting you know the facts. Grab our budgets. If you think there's more money out there, grab it. You ask that person out in Knight's Landing, can they afford more in property taxes to live in Kent County? I'd suggest you go out and ask them. I suggest you drive all over the county and ask taxpayers in general, can we afford more? Some in this room are saying they can. I can tell you right now, I don't want to pay one more damn dime in property taxes. Period. I don't. I think Dr. Couch is doing a great job. If you're willing to sit there and allow us to consolidate, because Dr. Couch says that's the best thing for the county, would I give more maintenance benefit to make sure our kids get more money to infuse in the teachers? Absolutely. But if we're sitting there maintaining buildings that make no sense to maintain because we have 130 kids in them, I'll sit here right today and say I will not go over maintenance better, in maintenance better. Will I give her $500,000 next year to do more work? Absolutely. Did they give her $150,000 to put a new football field in? Absolutely. I just think some things that are said here, unless you sit here, unless you're following us every week, I'd suggest also everybody in this room who has complaints, sit in here for the next 52 weeks. Every week. I don't see you in here any other time except for now. Come in all 52 weeks, 4 times a year. Come in every single week, sit in these seats so you get educated more on what we do, instead of coming in here condemning us for what we do. That you have no idea. And I know I just put some of you all through a week.
He's passing the buck.
You know,
We'll just
there's no
keep-
buck
yeah.
being passed.
It's.
There's no, half of the statements you
When
made
when
were
the whole room
wrong.
is saying lack of leadership, and you say, it's not lack of leadership, it's too hard up here.
And you're
guys-
Nobody said it's too hard. We make the decisions we have with the means we have to make them. Period. There's only so many dollars to go around. We make those decisions on that and that basis only.
Would you agree, though, that you have the money in your fund balance now to cover what Dr. Couch is asking for? the
Recurring
$1.5
costs?
million or the
Absolutely
$2
not,
million?
Fred. We don't know what the recurring cost is the following year. So no, we do not. It takes us to 7.3% to maintain payroll. Property taxes come in cycles. If we don't have 7.3% fund balance, bills don't get paid. That is not but a revolving door to make sure our bills get paid.
This is the first year that you've had a 7%.
No, we run a 7% all the time. We maintain a 7%. We had something we were putting money back for the last 3 years to better your children, Francois.
Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna see 10%, but you're gonna see that because that money was sitting there for that infusion of
Well, guess what? They
$4.5
have to
million.
do the same thing. Why are you allowed to stockpile your money for an important project that I totally agree with and I think is super important, and I'm really glad that you chose to do that with your money? But why is she not allowed to do the same thing? with
Because
her
she
own
didn't.
projects?
She didn't spend it. She let the school system, the football field go in her 2 years here. Now, don't get me wrong, she's doing wonderful things. But that money was in an account and wasn't being spent when our children were playing football on a field by her own admission with collapsed sewer drains, or drains system. And the commissioners gave them the money. And you knew that because you were here at the last meeting.
I did know that. I know that they paid for the football field. Guess what? That football field.
Where were you when the last superintendent let the books go for 15 years,
I was not
which
here.
Dr. Couch wasn't responsible for, but took care of?
We were asking.
Nobody came up here and was complaining about the last superintendent in those books,
I
which
wanna
my
hear
son
anything.
used for his whole education.
Well, guess what? You want, just because your son had to use those fields?
No, I wanted them replaced, which they got replaced, but they didn't occur when it should have.
Make a motion.
Okay.
Can I ask? May I say, please?
We're gonna move on. Peter, if you have anything, any questions you have, okay? And Bob, Bob's not here. Ken's here. Ken's here.
Hey, John.
We're gonna go ahead and go into our closed session.
We have a closed session.
I didn't sign up. I want the parents to also take some accountability. Can I speak on that as a parent? Because all the committees, we can't have 5 elementary schools and a middle school, and as I heard you say, no one wants to step up and be on the PTA. We need character counts coaches. I mean, so the parents need to, like, how many people signed your petition after we tried? So we all need to take some accountability, and I think right now, we have too many schools. I think we are going to consolidate.
Well, we have to remember, we are a small community, and we're all neighbors.